Hello, everybody. Welcome back to yet another video of FikarNot.com, now FikarNot from Studies. So, today we're going to be starting a brand new chapter in English literature this time, and we are going to be talking about the chapter Hearts and Hands. Now, the little notes that you see on your screen, like the setting, the city in USA, all of that, ignore all of that. Just listen to me, listen to my voice, and listen to what I have to say to all of you. Just imagine that this video is like a podcast, and I am your podcast host, and I'm teaching you a new chapter, alright? So, are you excited? Well, I am. So, let's get into the video and let's get started with this chapter. Alright. So, starting off with the chapter, let's talk about the title first. Hearts and Hands. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the words hearts and hands? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is hearts, meaning your heart, right? A heart that we have, a very simple heart. Probably emotionally, yeah? Probably emotionally, we're talking about hearts, right? And hands meaning just the hand that you see out there. The hand that I'm using to draw this heart in front of you, right? Or the hand that I use to write all these notes that you see in front of you. So, those hands, right? So, how are they related, or what's the difference? Well, one difference that I honestly think of is hearts is internal, so it's inside us, internally present, and hands is something that is externally present. Second one, hearts meaning romantically or emotionally hearts, and hands meaning something again that you see on the exterior and not on the interior. Well, with this hypothesis in mind, even though I know we're not starting with a physics, chemistry, or biology lesson, let's get into the video, and this time officially, let's start reading the chapter. Alright, so let me just rub this and let's start off. At Denver, there was an influx of passengers into the coaches on the eastbound B and M Express. Alright. So at Denver meaning a city in USA. So Denver is, if some of you are wondering what is Denver, Denver is USA, alright? Present in the continent of America, and at Denver, that is a city in USA, there was an influx of passengers into the coaches on the eastbound. Influx of passengers, as in many passengers were there into the coaches on the eastbound. Now, eastbound meaning a train that is going from the west to the east side, okay, or east to the west, whatever. Fine. So at Denver, there was an influx of passengers, as in there were many passengers, in a large quantity, right? There were many passengers into the coaches of the eastbound in B&M Express. That is the train's name. Now, in one coach, there sat a very pretty young woman. So, of course, as you all know, a train has different compartments, right? Which in this case is known as coaches, right? So in one of the coaches in the train sat a very pretty young woman, dressed in elegant taste and surrounded by all the luxurious comforts of an experienced traveler. Okay, so in one coach, as I just said, like different coaches of a train, right? So in one of those coaches, there was a very pretty young woman. Okay, and she was dressed in elegant taste. So when we say something is elegant, we mean that elegant as in it looks very pretty, but also simple. And normally we see such elegant taste in the higher class community. People with more money, they dress with a very elegant way. They dress in a very elegant way to say that, okay, we dress very simple, but at the same time, it's very, very expensive. It's almost like seeing a piece of cloth that we normally would get for, like, say, 5 rupees, and the actual higher class community gets the same piece of cloth but with many designs, embroidery, a more elegant version of the same material for say 100,000, right? So that's the difference. And she was a very pretty young woman dressed in elegant taste and surrounded by all luxurious comforts, which says that she was from a rich background. She was from a rich background, as in she had money, and she was from the higher class community. And luxurious comforts of an experienced traveler. This also says that she travels very often. So she was also surrounded by luxurious comforts, and all of this just says that she travels very often, and she is an experienced traveler as well. Now, among the newcomers were two young men, one of a handsome presence with a bold, frank countenance and manner, the other with a ruffled, glum faced person, heavily built and roughly dressed. The two were handcuffed together. So, this person, that's the pretty young woman, the name is unknown until now, so we're just going to call her the pretty young woman. She was dressed in luxurious comforts, and just in the next line we say among the newcomers, so clearly we know that she was not a newcomer, and she used to travel often. But in the same coach of the train, when we talk about the newcomers, there were these two young men. Both were young, all right? Both were young. Now, one was of a handsome presence with a bold, frank countenance and manner. So, one of the two men, he looked very nice, very elegant again. But in this sense, we don't know if he's from a richer background or not, because there's nothing specified, only with a handsome presence with a bold, frank countenance and manner. And the other one was ruffled. He was a glum faced person. He was heavily built and roughly dressed. So both of them are almost like antonyms over here. One was with a very good manner. He had very good manner, handsome presence, and the other was just like a ruffled, glum faced man. He was heavily built, but at the same time, he was very roughly dressed, all right? Now, moving on to the next paragraph. As they passed down the aisle of the coach, the only vacant seat offered was a reserved one facing the attractive young woman. So in the same coach of the train, one was an experienced traveler, one was the two of them were newcomers, and in the train, on the same coach of the train, there was only one seat empty, and it happened to be the one in front of the pretty young woman. So they go down to the aisle, and they sit down at the seat that is the one facing just in front of the pretty young woman. So the pretty young woman can clearly see them when she just looks straight up, because both of them are sitting in the same basic same seat, two different seats like this. There's one seat over here, there's one seat over here, right? This is the pretty young woman is sitting over here, and the two people are sitting over here basically, and they're facing each other. Okay, they're facing each other. Now here the linked couple as in linked by the handcuffs. Okay, seating themselves, the young woman's glance fell upon them with a distant, swift disinterest. This means that she was not interested at all in them. She was just, okay, I'll just mind my own business, and you guys can mind your own business. We all are in a train. Let's just stay in the train and leave for our stop, right? Now then, with a lovely smile brightening her countenance and a tender pink tingering her rounded cheeks, she held out a little grey gloved hand. Now this grey gloved hand ensures that she was from a rich background, because back in the day, whenever someone was from a higher class community, they always used to wear gloves, because they didn't want to touch anyone else. They were like, oh, we can't touch anyone else. We are the superior ones, and we won't exactly touch anyone else, and we'll just wear our glove, right? So she took out her grey gloved hand that she was wearing, and when she spoke, her voice, full, sweet, and deliberate, proclaimed that its owner was accustomed to be speak and to be heard. So when you are from such a rich community, when you are spending so much money to maintain your body, to maintain yourself, definitely you'll have this wish that when I'm speaking to someone, I want them to hear me and I want to be heard, and I should also speak, right? I should speak and they should hear me when I speak, right? You have this kind of wish and an attitude that I am from a rich community and people should hear me and I should be heard because I have money, right? So she was accustomed to speak and she wanted to be heard as well. Now, first she was very, she was not very interested to talk to both of them, but afterwards she changed her decision, and her tender pink rounded cheeks, she was smiling, and her cheeks were blushing, and she took out her grey gloved hand, all ready to speak. And then she says, moving on to the next paragraph, well, Mr. Easton. So one of the two men that we saw, one of them was Mr. Easton. If you will make me speak first, I suppose I must. Don't you ever recognize old friends when you meet them in the East? So the pretty young woman, she says that Mr. Easton, so one of the two men, now I'll tell you which one of them. So the one that we saw in the first paragraph, the well-mannered and the handsome presence, that man, he is no one other than Mr. Easton, all right? So Miss Fairchild says, don't you recognize old friends in the West? So she's saying this with a slight bit of sarcasm. That, hey, you didn't recognize me. How is that possible? Why didn't you recognize me? So she says, don't you ever recognize old friends when you meet them in the West? This means that both of them were old friends and they knew each other, right? And don't you ever recognize old friends in the West? This means that they're, of course, traveling in the West and their stop is somewhere in the West or the East, all right? Okay. So the younger man roused himself sharply at the sound of her voice, seemed to struggle with a slight embarrassment, which he threw off instantly, and then clasped her fingers with his left hand. So the younger man, so there were two men, right? One was Mr. Easton, as we just saw. Oops, I'm very sorry. Yes, one was Mr. Easton, as we just saw, and he was the one who was he had a handsome presence and all of that. So he was Mr. Easton, and the younger man, he roused himself sharply at the sound of her voice, seemed to struggle with a slight embarrassment. Underline this line, all right? Underline it. I'll come to this later on. Slight embarrassment. I may forget to come back at it, but hopefully I do, okay? So with a slight embarrassment, he seemed to struggle, which he threw off instantly. So he didn't show that he was embarrassed. And then he took out his left hand and held Miss... we don't know the name until now. So the pretty young woman's hand with his left hand. And then he said, it's Miss Fairchild. So the pretty young woman was none other than Miss Fairchild. And her name is Miss Fairchild. So he said with a smile, I'll ask you to excuse the other hand. It's otherwise engaged just at present. So as we saw a few minutes ago, that Mr. Easton and Miss Fairchild, both of them are acquaintances. Not acquaintances, as in they're old friends, right? They've known each other, but we don't know how well, but they're just old friends. That's all we know as of now. So they are old friends, they know each other, and we also saw that Mr. Easton and the glum-faced man both of them are handcuffed together, because, now let me tell you why they're handcuffed together, just because one of them is going to jail. And it's always this was a tradition. I'm not sure if it still goes on in America or USA, but back in the day, whenever a marshal and a prisoner, especially a prisoner, was supposed to be taken to a certain prison, the marshal also used to wear the handcuff with the prisoner so that the prisoner does not go away. So that makes sense, right? So the Marshall always used to wear the what do you say? Always used to wear the handcuff along with the prisoner, as I just said. And Mr. Easton, while talking to Miss Fairchild, says, just ignore the other hand, ignore my right hand. Remember this right hand because it's engaged just at present. It's engaged, and Miss Fairchild, until now, had not noticed that why he took out his left hand to hold my hand or something like that. She didn't notice all of that. They were just having a simple conversation, and then Mr. Easton says, just ignore the other hand, it's busy at the moment, right? Now, moving on to the next page. He slightly raised his right hand to show Miss Fairchild, this is my right hand, which is engaged, bound at the wrist by the shining bracelet. Shining bracelet, again, a bit of a sarcasm that is being put or said by the author over here, that is Mr. O. Henry. And he is talking about, he's just giving a little sarcasm by mentioning the handcuff as a silver bracelet to one of his companion. Now, the glad look in the girl's eyes. So, as we saw, the girl's reaction started with a disinterest. Then she became very happy. Her cheeks, she with a little, she was blushing a bit, and she took out her glove, her handed glove, her grey gloved hand. Yes, basically just her not grey hand, but basically just her hand. In which she was wearing a grey glove, on which she was wearing a grey glove, and she took that out. And from that reaction, from a very happy reaction that, hey, I'm meeting my old friend, it went to a very sad reaction. And the glad look on the girl's eyes slowly changed to a bewildered horror. The glow faded from her cheeks, her lips parted in a vague, relaxing distress. Easton, with a little laugh, as if amused, was about to speak again. So Easton was about to speak again. Easton was just about to speak again about, okay, why am I handcuffed to this companion over here? What's the reason behind it? Just when the glum-faced man had been watching the girl's countenance with wild glances from his keen-shrewd eyes. So he is looking at the girl and all her reactions. So from a very happy look, she went to a very, these are my old friends. She's wearing a handcuff. She was almost disappointed that these are the old friends that I know, right? These are the old friends that I know that are going to prison right now, and she was very embarrassed as well. So I'm very sorry. The glum-faced man was over there looking at all the expressions of the girl, and the glum-faced man had been watching the girl's countenance with veiled glances from his keen. Underline this, veiled glances from his keen, shrewd eyes, and he was carefully looking at everything the girl was doing, all her reactions, as I just said, right? So, next paragraph. You'll excuse me for speaking, miss, but I see you are acquainted with the marshal here. If you will ask him to speak a word for me when we get to the pen, he'll do it. And it will make things easier for me there. He's taking me to Leanwood prison. It's 7 years for counterfeiting. So what do we get to know over here? The glum-faced man says that Mr. Easton is the marshal and I am the prisoner, and that's why we both are handcuffed so that I don't exactly run away, and we're coming together, and this guy over here is the marshal and he's my marshal, and he just speaks between their conversation and just says, hey, Mr. Easton is the marshal. So don't get that disinterest or that embarrassment look on your face, basically. Right? So the man says that Mr. Easton is taking him to Leavenworth prison, and it's for 7 years for counterfeiting. So counterfeiting is actually a finance crime It's a finance crime when you try to mess up, you try to make money in a more smarter way, but also in an illegal way. And that's what the glum-faced man says that he had done, and that is why Mr. Easton, that is claimed to be the marshal, is being taken to Mr. Easton that is being claimed to be a marshal is taking the glum-faced man to prison, basically. Okay, Oh, said the girl with a deep breath and returning color. So, with almost like a sigh, like, okay, you'll get this really bad noise right now, but I'll just like make this sound of sigh. Like that. So it was just like a sigh. She had this, oh, okay, thank God. My old friends, they're a marshal. I am saved. I'm not embarrassed anymore. And she returns the color, the happiness that she had on her face earlier. And my dear Miss Fairchild, said Easton calmly, I had to do something. Money has a way of taking wings onto itself, and you know it takes money to keep step with our crowd in Washington. I saw this opening in the West, and well, marshalship isn't quite as a high position as that of an ambassador, but so over here both of them are having a conversation again, and Mr. Easton, he calmly says that, I had to get money somehow because I mean I'm an adult now. I have to pay for my bills, etc. And it's very hard to keep up with the crowd over here because every place has its own standard of living, right? And in Washington, they're saying that the standard of living is, of course, it's very high. So I wanted to make money somehow, and I saw this opening of a marshalship in the West, and well, I took the opportunity, and I'm a marshal over here now. I mean, it's not as high of a position as an ambassador, but sure. So over here, Mr. Easton is also trying to impress Miss Fairchild, saying that, hey, I know it's not exactly as high as an ambassador, but it's almost like when I get first position in a great competition that I know it's a big deal. I got first place, but I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I only slept at like 1 o'clock, not a big deal. So just similarly, Mr. Easton says that, yeah, I mean, it's not as high a position as that of an ambassador, but I mean, it's still a marshal. So then Miss Fairchild says, the ambassador, said the girl warmly, doesn't call anymore. He needn't ever have done so. You ought to know that, and so now you are one of the dashing Western heroes. So over here, Miss Fairchild is also very interested in Mr. Easton, and she says she's very fascinated by Mr. Easton, and she says, yeah, you are one of the dashing Western heroes in the West, and you ride and shoot and go, and the ambassador doesn't do all of that. The marshal is the one who does all of that, and you are the hero of all time. So she is very fascinated, and she is very excited that, hey, my old friend is a marshal, and she seems very interested in Mr. Easton, and so does Mr. Easton in Miss Fairchild. So and she says that you ride and shoot and go on into all kinds of dangers that's different from the Washington life. You have been missed from the old crowd. So she over here mentions that, hey, I miss you. You're an old friend, but I miss you in the old crowd that we all used to live in, and that's why we say that they're old friends, because they've known each other from a long time. Now the girl's eyes, fascinated, went back, widening a little to rest upon the glittering handcuff. So after this conversation, she starts looking at the handcuff again, which was referred to a shining bracelet before. Okay, moving on to the next page. Don't you worry about them, miss, said the other man. That's the glum-faced man. All marshals handcuff themselves to the prisoners to keep them from getting away. Mr. Easton knows his business. So over here, the glum-faced man says, hey, don't you worry about the handcuffs. If you're still wondering why we're wearing handcuffs, that's just because, as I said, the marshal always wears handcuffs so that the prisoner does not escape. And that's what Mr. Easton is also doing with the glum-faced man. So, will we see you again soon in Washington? Asked the girl. So the girl wants to meet Mr. Easton again. So underline this line and write over there. So whatever I'm saying, make sure you always write everything down, because these little pointers will help you in your final examination or your post test or your unit test, whatever at all. All right. So will we see you again soon in Washington? So again, underline it and write over there. Miss Fairchild wants to see and wishes to meet Mr. Easton again. So she wishes to meet Mr. Easton again. Not soon, I think, said Easton. My butterfly days are over, I feared. So butterfly days over here refers to I'll come back to this actually. Let me just come back to this, my butterfly days, and I'll explain it to you after we're done with this complete chapter, okay? I love the West, said the girl irrelevantly. What am I doing? I'm very sorry. Irrelevantly, her eyes were shining softly. She looked away out of the car window. She began to speak truly and simply without the gloss of style and manner. So, previously, taking out her gloved hand, she was speaking with all manners. I am from a higher class community and I have these manners, this elegancy, or I am just elegant in the way I speak. So, without any manners now, she without any gloss of style, without like a cover or without any laminating, or what do I say, how do I explain it, without any sugar coating in her manners, she just comes back to her real style of speaking, and she just looks out of the window and starts speaking. Mama and I spent the summer in Denver. She went home a week ago because father was slightly ill. I could live and be happy in the West. So this basically says that she is very self-centered. This talks a lot about the personality that Miss Fairchild has. She is very self centered. She doesn't care that her father is sick. She says that, I could stay over here. I don't care about my father being sick. My mom went over there. She's there. I don't care. All of that. So she's very self centered. She cares about herself and also her luxury comforts and what's surrounding her, basically. So she is self centered and she says, I am very happy in the East, and my father was slightly ill, but I could live and be happy in the East anyway. I think the air here agrees with me. Money isn't everything, but people always misunderstand things and remain stupid. So I'll come back to this line as well because this line is very ironic. People seem stupid, remain stupid. Remain stupid. Miss Fairchild doesn't know, but it's very ironic because she is the one that is misunderstood and she is the one who is being stupid, or she's misunderstood as well, right? Now, moving on to the next paragraph. Say, Mr. Marshall, growled the glum-faced man. This isn't quite fair. I'm needing a drink and haven't had a smoke all day. Haven't you talked long enough? Take me in the smoker now, won't you? I'm half dead for a pipe. So over here, the glum-faced man says that, say, Mr. Marshall, say, Mr. Easton, growled the glum-faced man. This isn't quite fair. You have been talking to your old friend for such a long time. I need a drink now. I'm half dead for a drink and a smoke. So take me to the smoker. I need to take a smoke now. And take me over there. I really need. I'm half dead for it. So the bound travelers rose to their feet and Easton with a slow smile on his face. I can't deny a petition for tobacco, he said lightly. It is the friend of the fortunate. So over here, Mr. Easton says that I cannot deny a petition for tobacco. The glum-faced man over here that is known to be or claimed to be the prisoner says that I cannot deny this petition for tobacco. He's the one, it's the one friend for the unfortunate. Unfortunate as in, unfortunate that he's the prisoner and tobacco is the only friend of this prisoner now, and tobacco is the only thing that will keep this guy going. So he says, okay, I'll have to go now. So goodbye, Miss Fairchild, duty calls, He held out his hand for a farewell. Now, Miss Fairchild says, it's too bad that you're not going to the West. East. It's too bad that you're not going to the East. So Miss Fairchild wants Mr. Easton to stay, and she says, hey, I don't want you to go. So this just shows that both of them are interested in each other and they want to know more about each other, right? She said, reclothing herself with manner and style. So as we saw a few paragraphs before, that she, without any gloss of style and manner, she just starts speaking truly and simply. But again, when Mr. Easton is going, she gets back onto her manner and style that she has, and she says, but you must go to Leavenworth, I suppose. Yes, said Easton, I must go to Leavenworth. These two men sidled down the aisle into the smoker. So the two men sidled down the aisle for into the smoker, because as you all know, a train or an aeroplane, not an aeroplane but normally trains, they do have a aisle, not an aisle, sorry, a place for smoking, and normally all places do, right? Moving on to the next page. The two passengers in a seat nearby had heard most of the conversation. So these three people, not three people, or you can say only Mr. Easton and Miss Fairchild, they were having a conversation. And just beside them down the aisle, there were two more passengers that were hearing this conversation, And one of them, these two passengers that were hearing the conversation, one of those passengers said that Marshall's a good sort of a chap. Some of these Western fellows are all right. Pretty young to hold an office like that, isn't he? Asked the other. So the other one says, young, exclaimed the first speaker. Why? Oh, didn't you catch on? Did you ever know an officer to handcuff a prisoner on his right hand? So here the suspense comes, and we get to know that Mr. Easton was actually the prisoner, and the glum-faced man was the marshal. The glum-faced man was just covering up, and he didn't want Mr. Easton to feel embarrassed in front of his old friend, that both of them seemed interested in each other. So he just said lies, and turns out that Mr. Easton was the prisoner. Why? Because we saw multiple times that he was handcuffed on the right hand, and the glum-faced man that now I'll call the marshal was handcuffed to Mr. Easton on his left hand, which just shows that Mr. Easton was no one but the prisoner, right? He was the prisoner, and Mr. Easton was the prisoner, okay? Now let me just go back to a few pages that I said that I will come back at. Which one did I see? Yes, this one, okay. So money has a way of taking wings onto itself, and it takes money to keep step with our crowd in Washington. So counterfeiting, as I said, is an illegal crime in the case of finance, and you are trying to make money in illegal ways, and that's what Mr. Easton had also done. So he had to be in prison for 7 years. So money, it takes its way to keep step with our crowd. So he actually just reveals his cover over here by saying this society that we live in has a higher standard of living. It has a high standard of living, and that is why I had to counterfeit, and I had to get money the illegal way, or else I wouldn't have been able to survive. Okay, second one. My butterfly days are over. This means he's going to prison now, so his butterfly days are of course over now. He won't have a social life anymore. And the third one. Money isn't everything, but people always misunderstand things and remain stupid. So it's very ironic, because as we just got to know, Miss Fairchild is the one that is misunderstood, and she thinks that the glum-faced man, he's not good looking at all. For sure, he's like the prisoner. She didn't even see which hand the handcuff was tied on, because it's general knowledge that everyone should know, and she didn't see that, and she just went on the basis of what's on the exterior rather than what's on the interior, because she was from a higher class society. So she really knew about manners and how to sit and all of that, and that's all she cared about. She only cared about well-mannered. The man should be well-mannered. The man should be handsome and well-dressed and all of that. And yes, that man it will be the marshal then, and that's what she did in this case as well. So that's why when she says people are always misunderstood and they remain stupid, it's very ironic, because she was the one who was misunderstood, and she was the one who remained stupid in this case, all right? Okay, going back to the title of this chapter, Hearts and Hands. So our hypothesis is right? This can actually have two interpretations. One, hearts, because of course it's what's on the exterior, and hearts is something that is on the interior, and hands is something that's on the exterior. And the second interpretation could be hearts again, that is on the interior, and hands is on the exterior. And the marshal over here talks about the heart. He may look very rough-faced, roughly not roughly mannered, heavy duty, or rough a ruffled, a glum-faced person, roughly dressed and all of that. But hands. In this case, Mr. Easton looked very handsome, but it always depends on your personality, what is on the inside at the end. And that is what Mr. O. Henry wants to convey through this chapter. A little about the author, William Sidney Potter. He is known as O. Henry, that's his pen name, and his short stories are well known for a ready-willed gentle humor with a surprise ending that we saw in this in this chapter. It was a very it was a pleasant surprise and a surprise ending, and it was good to know that the glum-faced man is such a kind human being. He could have been so rude. Hey, I am the marshal, I am the best, I am this, I am the Western hero, blah, 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 blah. But instead, he claimed himself to be the prisoner, imagine. He claimed himself to be the prisoner. That just shows what a well-mannered and what a good person he is. So we get to know, never judge a book by its cover. It's what's on the exterior instead of the interior. So this lesson, not only for your exam but also in real life, teaches us a lot. And I love this chapter so much. I love teaching it, I love reading it, and it's one of my most favorite chapters and short stories to read. I hope you all loved it too. And if you have any doubts, post it in the comment section below. As always, I'll be more than happy to solve them. Like, share, subscribe to FikarNot.com if you like the video. And I'll see you guys next week with with another video. And bye. All the best for your exams. Bye.